Picture this. You wake up one morning, grab your coffee, and instead of stepping out onto your porch, you step onto a raft. Welcome to Earth, version 2.0, the Water World Edition. This might sound like the opening scene of a questionable sci-fi movie, but it's actually a not-so-impossible future scenario. Climate change is real, it's rapid, and it's especially harsh on the Arctic. Scientists report that the Arctic is warming at twice the speed of the rest of the planet. That's not just extra heat. That's Mother Nature throwing the thermostat out the window. But what would actually happen if all the ice on Earth melted? Buckle up, because this gets wild. A rare frozen delight. Let's start with some surprising water math. When you drink water, you're enjoying fresh water, the kind that's not salty, tangy, or pulled from the sea. Only about 3% of all the water on Earth is fresh. And guess what? About 70% of that tiny sliver is locked away in frozen-form glaciers, polar ice caps, and permafrost. That's roughly 30 million cubic kilometers of water chilling, literally, in ice. If you stacked that into a 1,000-meter thick layer, it could cover the entire continent of North America. Let that sink in or melt in, rather. Arctic ice. The first domino. Now let's talk about the Arctic. Unlike the ice sheets in Greenland or Antarctica, most of the Arctic ice is sea ice, meaning it floats on the ocean rather than sitting on land. Think of it as a giant, frigid lily pad. And since it's directly in contact with warming waters, it's also the first to start disappearing when global temperatures rise. Back in 2016, NASA reported the lowest recorded sea ice levels ever during the first half of the year from January through June. That's not just bad news for ice lovers or penguins with summer homes. It's a loud alarm for everyone. A shortcut over the North Pole? You might say, well, if the Arctic melts, that could open up shipping routes, right? Technically, yes, companies could sail from Europe to Russia right across the North Pole. Ice-free, smooth sailing. Sounds like a win for business, right? Hold that thought, because while companies may celebrate quicker deliveries, polar bears, walruses, seals, and many marine species would be losing their homes. Their ice platforms are melting underneath them, and unlike us, they can't just pack up and move to Florida. Oil companies. As Arctic ice disappears, energy companies are treating it like Black Friday. They're rushing in to explore untapped oil and gas reserves hidden beneath the ocean floor. But to do that, they use a method called seismic blasting. Think of it as underwater fireworks, only much louder and more annoying, especially if you're a whale trying to nap. These blasts can traumatize marine life, disrupt migration, and mess with entire ecosystems. All this just to find more oil to burn, which causes more warming, which melts more ice. Yes, the irony is ice cold. Floating ice versus land ice. Here's a neat little science tidbit. When sea ice melts, it does not significantly raise ocean levels. That's because it's already floating and displacing its own weight in water. But the real danger is the land ice, the thick ice sheets that sit like frozen hats on top of Greenland and Antarctica. If those melt, well, that's when things go from oh no to oh no. These ice sheets hold more than 95% of the world's frozen water, and if they melted entirely, we'd see sea levels rise by up to 70 meters or around 230 feet for the metric challenged. Say goodbye to the coastlines. So, what would a 70-meter sea level rise really look like? Picture this. Florida completely underwater, gone like a sandcastle at high tide. Major global cities like Shanghai, New York, Tokyo, Mumbai, and Jakarta would transform into modern-day Venice, while much of the eastern and western US would wave goodbye to their beaches. Even Australia might end up with a brand new inland sea. The damage? We're talking trillions of dollars per year. And no, your home insurance won't cover that. Better look into a snorkel policy. But the most staggering part is this. Nearly half of the world's population, about 4 billion people, live near coastlines. If sea levels climb even just 10 meters, 630 million people could be displaced, which is roughly 10% of the global population scrambling to find new land, livelihoods, and safety. Start designing those floating cities. We might need them sooner than you think. Nature's thermostat breaks. Let's dive into the albedo effect, nature's very own thermostat. Ice, especially the bright white kind that covers the Arctic and Antarctic, acts like a massive mirror, reflecting sunlight back into space and helping keep our planet cool. But when that ice melts, it reveals the dark ocean water beneath, which doesn't reflect sunlight, it absorbs it. This leads to a dangerous feedback loop. The planet gets warmer, more ice melts, exposing more dark surfaces, which then soak up even more heat. That extra heat causes even more ice to melt, and the cycle repeats again and again until one day you find yourself Googling how to build an ark with Wi-Fi. Ocean currents. Our oceans have a sophisticated system of global currents, often compared to a conveyor belt. These currents distribute heat, salt, and nutrients across the globe. They're powered in part by differences in salinity and temperature. Now imagine you pour a massive amount of fresh, cold water from Greenland's melting ice sheet into the salty North Atlantic. That fresh water could disrupt or even stop these currents, which would have terrifying consequences. Take the Gulf Stream, for example. It helps keep Europe warm and climate stable. But if Greenland keeps melting, this warm water highway could stall. Europe might suddenly find itself with winters that feel more Siberia and less Spain. That means failing crops, mass migrations, and some very unhappy French vineyards. It's not just heat, it's the ecosystem. When we think about melting ice and rising temperatures, it's easy to focus on the heat, but the real drama unfolds beneath the waves. Our oceans aren't just big, salty bathtubs. They're part of a finely tuned system. Disrupting ocean currents messes with nutrient circulation, which throws plankton into disarray. Plankton may be tiny, but they're basically the microscopic buffet that feeds the fish, that feed the bigger fish, that feed, well, us. If the plankton go down, it's a seafood supply chain disaster. And here's a breathtaking fact. About 50% of the oxygen you breathe is made by ocean plants. So yeah, if the ocean gets sick, we all start wheezing like we ran a marathon uphill with a plastic bag over our heads. Ocean health, our health. The sea isn't just home to fish and mermaids. It's our planet's life support system. Treat it right, or we might all be underwater and out of breath. A visit to Ground Zero. Some researchers went directly to the Arctic to see what's happening firsthand, and they were stunned. What they witnessed wasn't just a bit of melting or a few sad polar bears. It was the unraveling of a delicate and ancient balance, driven by reckless industrial expansion and lack of political will. Communities in northern Canada are already fighting for their rights, trying to stop oil companies from drilling in their backyards or ice yards. They're not just protecting their homes, they are on the front lines of climate justice. So what can we do? Yes, it all sounds overwhelming because, honestly, it is. But the good news is that we're not helpless. There are real, tangible actions we can take to fight back. Start by spreading the word. Talk about climate change. Share articles and videos, and educate your friends and family. Support clean energy. Whenever possible, switch to renewables. Reduce your reliance on fossil fuels, and champion companies that do the same. Sign petitions that aim to halt seismic blasting and prevent Arctic exploitation. Vote for leaders who prioritize the planet, not profit margins, and hold them accountable. Finally, change your everyday habits, eat less meat, reduce plastic use, bike or walk when you can, and recycle. Every small action matters, and together, they create a powerful wave of change. If this video made you think, laugh, or slightly panic, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening content about our planet. Drop a comment with your thoughts or your backup plan if Florida sinks.